Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. I didn't scream. I didn't fall to my knees. I didn't even cry, not right away. I just stood there, barefoot on the cold tile of our bathroom floor, staring at the little white stick shaking slightly in my hand. 2 pink lines. Faint but unmistakable. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, held it under the light like that might change it somehow. But it didn't change. I was pregnant. After all the years. After all the tests, the needles, the tears, I cried in silence while friends announced their baby showers and posted sonogram pictures. After the long nights spent clutching my stomach, asking the universe what was wrong with me. After the miscarriage we never talked about, not even to each other. Now finally 2 pink lines. I pressed the test against my chest, sank to the floor and whispered, "Please stay." Because deep down I already loved the life growing inside me. A tiny flicker I couldn't feel yet but somehow felt everywhere at once. The next moment was instinct. I stood up, wiped my eyes and practically ran down the hallway. My heart was pounding, my breath stuck somewhere between a laugh and a sob. I wanted to see his face. I wanted to tell him that after everything we'd endured, everything I'd endured, we made it. He was in the living room, hunched over his phone, scrolling. I stepped into the doorway, holding the test behind my back. "Hey," I said softly, still smiling. He looked up. Barely. "What's up?" My voice trembled as I stepped forward. "I think we did it." He furrowed his brow. "Did what?" I held out the test. There was a beat of silence. Then he leaned forward, squinting. "What is that?" "Wait, is that?" I nodded, smiling. "I'm pregnant." Another pause. Longer this time. He sat back slowly. Oh, that was it.
No smile. No shout.
No rushing to hold me or asking how I felt. Just one word, flat and empty, like I had told him I burned dinner instead of just delivered the news we had spent years dreaming of. "That's great," he said finally, rubbing the back of his neck. "Wow. I wasn't expecting that today." I waited for something else. Anything. But he was already picking up his phone again. I stood there, blinking, the test still in my hand, the joy in my chest flickering like a candle in the wind. "Do you want to talk about it?" I asked. He didn't look up. "Yeah, of course. Just can we do it later? I've got a bunch of emails to catch up on." Emails. I backed out of the room quietly, holding that tiny piece of plastic like it might break. Later that night, he didn't mention it again. He kissed me goodnight briefly and rolled over to face the other side of the bed. I lay there in the dark, one hand on my stomach, and whispered to myself, "It's okay. He just needs time. It's early. He's just surprised." But deep down I knew better. Because I had waited years to feel this joy. And he didn't even look me in the eyes. It didn't start broken. There was a time when we wanted the same thing. When the idea of becoming parents was something we whispered about late at night, laughing under blankets, our fingers tracing invisible baby names in the air. We made promises in the dark, the kind you think love will always protect. He used to say, "You'll be the best mom." I used to believe him. We tried the old-fashioned way at first. The hopeful way. Ovulation apps, vitamins, whispered prayers before we turned off the lights. Every month I waited. Every month I bled. And with every red smear on the test strip, a piece of me chipped away. After a year we moved to the next step. Doctors. Tests. Blood work. Ultrasounds. I started counting time in cycles instead of months. Injections became routine. Hope became mathematical, a percentage chance, a daily hormone level, a calculated guess. We spent thousands. More than we could afford. We canceled vacations. Skipped dinners out. Stopped celebrating anniversaries. He stopped touching me unless a calendar said it was time. I remember giving myself injections in the bathroom stall at work. Holding ice against my stomach so the needle wouldn't sting so much. I watch blood bead on my skin and think, is this what love looks like now? He waited in the car a lot. Scrolled his phone while I sat under fluorescent lights. Legs in stirrups. Body exposed to strangers in lab coats. He used to hold my hand during the appointments. Then he started waiting outside. Then he stopped coming at all. We lost one early on. 6 weeks in. It was barely even a heartbeat, but I heard it once on the monitor. Flicker. A blip. The sound of maybe. Then it was gone. He didn't cry. he said. It's better it happened now than later. And I knew he didn't mean to be cruel, but I also knew he never heard the heartbeat. Not really. After that, I stopped talking about baby names. He stopped asking about test results. We became shadows moving through the same house, orbiting the same grief in different silences. And I thought maybe this is just a phase. Maybe once we get pregnant again, we'll come back to each other. Maybe the joy will repair the distance. So I kept going. More treatments. More sacrifice. I stopped drinking coffee. Started acupuncture. Prayed over vitamins like they were sacred. I quit my job because the stress was interfering. I gave up wine, soft cheese, sushi, long baths, sleep, rest, all of it. He gave up less. I told myself he was tired. That it was hard on him too. But the truth I didn't want to face was this. I was the only one still fighting for a child that hadn't been born yet. And in trying to build a family, I was losing the one I already had. You expect things to change after the news. You expect the world to shift, for people to light up, for your partner to wrap you in his arms and call it a miracle, for the moment to rewrite every ounce of pain it took to get there. But nothing shifted. Not for him. I watched the excitement bloom in everyone else first. My mother cried. My sister screamed into the phone. Friends texted photos of tiny onesies and baby names they'd been secretly saving for me. The world felt warm. And then I turned back toward him, and it was cold again. He started coming home later. First it was excuses. Traffic. Last-minute meetings. Drinks with clients. I didn't want to nag, so I smiled, nodded, waited. Then it was silence. One night I made dinner. Nothing fancy. Just something simple and warm: roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, a salad with the dressing he liked. I waited for him. An hour passed. Then 2. I called. No answer. He walked in at 10:43 p.m., reeking of some unfamiliar cologne and stale bourbon. His tie loosened, shirt wrinkled, eyes glassy. I stood up. I waited. He blinked, shrugged. I didn't ask you to. Then he walked straight past me, into the bathroom, and closed the door. That night I ate alone. The food was cold, but I forced it down anyway. Because I wasn't just eating for me anymore. There was a heartbeat inside me now, and I didn't want it to feel what I was feeling. Loneliness used to come in waves. Now it lived in the walls. The next week I had my first ultrasound appointment. I sat in the waiting room in a paper gown, hands folded over my belly, looking at the door every few minutes. He never came. When the nurse called my name, I smiled. But it felt like my skin was made of glass. She placed the wand against my stomach, and there it was, flickering on the screen. The heartbeat. A real one. I cried. Quietly. Alone. She printed the photo. Do you want to take this home to the father? She asked kindly. I hesitated, then nodded. When I handed it to him that night, he barely looked at it. That's cool, he said, placing it on the counter next to the mail. Then he went back to his phone. That ultrasound photo sat there for 3 days. Under a pizza coupon. Eventually I moved it, framed it, put it on my nightstand, my side of the bed. He never asked where it went. He never noticed it was gone. And I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. I was already doing this alone. I wasn't trying to listen. I was half asleep on the couch, wrapped in the same blanket I'd napped under during every hormone crash, every migraine, every night spent hoping for a miracle. The house was dim. Just the soft hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of wood settling. He thought I was asleep. That's the only reason he let his voice drop to that tone. That low, nervous pitch people use when they're saying things they shouldn't. I heard the front door click shut. Not a slam. Just a quiet click. I stirred, but I didn't move. Then came the whisper. His voice near the hallway. No, she doesn't know. There was silence. Then a soft chuckle, a private kind, the one he used to save for me. The kind that once made me feel like I was in on something. Now it felt like the sound of something breaking. Yeah, I'll tell her after the baby's born. Not before. She can't handle it right now. My heart started pounding so hard I thought I might throw up. I didn't breathe. Didn't blink. I stayed perfectly still. It's not like she's strong enough to raise it alone anyway. It was like being stabbed while someone smiled over you. My body went cold. A bone-deep chill that started in my spine and spread through every muscle. My hands clenched under the blanket. My throat locked. I couldn't scream. Couldn't even cry. He was pacing now. His voice lowered even more, muffled by the walls. I couldn't make out the words anymore. Just tone. Comfortable. Confident. Like someone speaking to a lover he didn't have to lie to. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. Not even the infidelity, though I felt it in every inch of my skin like a bruise I hadn't seen until now. The worst part was how certain he was that I wouldn't survive without him. How easy it was for him to write me off. Not just as a wife but as a mother. Like I was a placeholder. A vessel. Like I was small. When I heard the front door open again, quiet footsteps returning, I rolled to my side, feigning sleep. My face calm. My breathing even. He walked past the couch, not noticing the way my eyes fluttered beneath the closed lids, or the tightness in my shoulders. He didn't know I heard everything. But I did. And something inside me, something quiet and sacred, shifted in that moment. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was resolve. The next morning I stood in the kitchen, making toast with shaking hands. He walked in, yawning, rubbing his eyes like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't whispered someone else's name down the hallway the night before. Like he hadn't taken my trust, folded it neatly, and buried it somewhere between his phone calls and perfume-stained shirts. He kissed my cheek lightly, automatically. I didn't flinch. I smiled. And in that moment I realized something terrifying. I had become a master at pretending. I asked him about his plans for the day. He said he had a client dinner. I didn't ask which client. I just nodded and poured orange juice. Because now I knew the difference between his lies and the ones I told myself to survive them. He was checking his phone more. Locking it when he left a room. Showering with the bathroom door shut. He used to hum in the mornings. Now he barely spoke until he left the house. The distance between us was no longer emotional. It was physical. Cold. Strategic. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead I waited. Watched. Listened. And one night I slipped into the bathroom while he was in the shower. His phone was on the sink, unlocked. I didn't hesitate. I didn't care if it made me crazy or paranoid, or whatever word men use when women start connecting dots. The messages were still there. Dozens of them. From her. Her name wasn't saved, just initials, but I knew. You can always tell by the way someone writes. The way their fingers flirt through text. Miss you already. When are you telling her? I want to start fresh. Photos too. One of them in our bed. Our sheets. My pillow in the corner of the frame like a ghost watching the lie unfold. I didn't gasp. Didn't drop the phone. I just stood there stone still, holding it like it was proof of something I already knew. I scrolled. Backwards. Months. Maybe longer. Conversations that stretched through the nights I lay beside him thinking he was just tired. Distant. Stressed. He was never distant. He was just elsewhere. I put the phone down before he stepped out. Smiled. Walked back to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, one hand on my stomach. This child, this tiny innocent life growing inside me, had no idea what it was being born into. And I had a choice. I could fall apart. Or I could make a plan. That night, I opened a folder on my laptop labeled Receipts. I screenshotted messages. Saved photos. Compiled dates, times, locations. Not to shame him. Not to beg him to stay. But to build my escape. He had underestimated me. He thought I was weak because I didn't scream when he betrayed me. But what he didn't understand, what he never bothered to learn, is that silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes it means strategy. I lay in bed that night with my hands cradling my belly, listening to the soft thump of the baby's heartbeat echo in my memory from the last ultrasound. A sound that once made me cry with joy now brought tears for a different reason. I had to make a choice. Not between leaving or staying, but between risking everything, or risking nothing changing at all. Because the man in the next room, the one I used to believe would hold my hand through childbirth, the one I once pictured dozing off in a rocking chair with a newborn in his arms, was now someone I feared more than I trusted. Not because he hit me, not because he yelled, but because he lied so smoothly, so consistently, and with so little remorse, that I didn't know if he was capable of caring for anything but himself. That realization changed everything. I started planning like the mother I knew I'd have to be. Not the one with a partner, but the one standing alone. I opened a private savings account. I called a legal aid center and asked how custody works for an unborn child. I found a therapist. She asked me, "Are you in danger?" I said, "Not yet." But she understood the weight in my voice. The danger of staying in a house built on silence and fear. I thought about the baby all the time now. What kind of home she'd know. What kind of love she'd see. What kind of mother I'd have to become. Even when I was exhausted and heartbroken and stretched beyond what I thought I could survive. Every decision became layered. Do I wait until after the birth to leave? Do I keep the last name? Do I tell him I know before I have legal protection? None of it felt fair. And no one prepares you for this. The movies don't show the pregnant woman in the lawyer's office, asking how to protect her child from a man who still sleeps down the hall. No one tells you how lonely it is to design a nursery while planning for custody. No one talks about packing an emergency bag with both baby clothes and divorce paperwork. But I was doing it. Quietly. Carefully. Strategically. I bought a notebook and started writing letters to my baby. Not goodbye letters, just truths. I wanted you before I knew you. You saved me from thinking I wasn't enough. I will always choose you even when it's hard. And the hardest truth of all? You might grow up without your father, because he chose someone else before he chose us. That's the decision no mother should have to make. But I was making it, because she deserved better. And so did I. Started with a name. Not his. Not ours. Mine. I was filling out a baby registry online. Something I'd avoided for weeks. Every time the homepage opened, it felt like I was pretending. Like I was designing a life I wasn't sure I'd have the strength to hold together. But that day was different. The house was quiet. He'd left early, probably to meet her. I didn't ask anymore. I just watched the door close behind him and listened to the silence settle like dust around the furniture. I sat down at the kitchen table and clicked, "Start a new registry." The form asked, "Mother's full name." And without thinking I typed it. My full name. Not hyphenated. Not his last name. Just me. It felt small and rebellious. But it also felt honest. Because whatever came next, whatever courtroom, whatever papers, whatever version of the future I was about to build, it was going to start with a woman who remembered who she was before she changed everything for a man who never intended to stay. I closed my laptop and walked into the nursery. It was still bare. Just an empty crib frame and a folded rocking chair I hadn't assembled yet. The walls were blank. The corners echoing. But something felt different in the air that afternoon. Like I had finally arrived in the room as myself. I picked up a piece of chalk and drew on the wall. Not a full name. Not yet. Just one word. Hope. I didn't know what I'd name her yet. But I knew she would carry a name that meant something. Not something we agreed on out of politeness or compromise, but something I chose. Because this child was mine. Not a bargaining chip in a dying marriage. Not a symbol to fix what couldn't be fixed. Not a way to make him stay. She was her own beginning. And so was I. I called my lawyer the next morning. Asked about naming rights. Custody filings. Prenatal legal protections. He sounded surprised by my composure. But I wasn't composed. I was focused. When I hung up, I made a list. Everything I would handle before the baby came. And for the first time in months, the weight on my chest lifted. Not all the way, but just enough to take a full breath. Later that evening, he walked in and noticed a package by the door. "Who ordered all this?" he asked. "I did," I said, not looking up. "Registry stuff." He nodded, uninterested. "We should talk about the name soon." I met his eyes then. Steady. Calm. "No," I said. "I've already decided." He frowned. "You what?" I said, "I've chosen the name." He blinked confused. "Without me." I turned back to the box and started unpacking. "You made your choices. I'm making mine." The pain was unlike anything I had imagined. They say labor is the most physical pain a woman can endure. But no one prepares you for the emotional fractures that come with it when you're giving birth beside a man you no longer trust. He was there, of course, sitting by my side, holding my hand between contractions, brushing my hair back like he was the devoted husband he hadn't been in months. He even smiled for the nurses, said things like, "We're just so excited." And she's been a warrior through it all. I let him play his part. But deep down I knew who he really was. And I knew she did too. The contractions grew sharper. My hands clenched tighter. The monitors beeped louder. I was in the thick of it, somewhere between exhaustion and adrenaline, focused on the baby, on breathing, on staying upright through the storm. Then my phone buzzed. It was on the table by the sink, near my overnight bag. I wouldn't have noticed it, except the screen lit up again. A second buzz. A third. I was mid-contraction when the nurse handed it to me. Just in case it's urgent. I didn't recognize the number at first, but I recognized the face. It was a photo of him. In someone else's apartment. In her mirror. Shirtless. This morning. Time froze. There was no caption. Just a message. I thought you should know who he kissed before seeing you. I stared at the screen, breath caught in my throat. He was beside me, reading the monitor. Clueless. The nurse asked gently, "Are you okay?" I looked her in the eyes, nodded once, and said softly, "Yes. I just changed my birth plan. The baby was coming. And so was the truth." She came into the world with her eyes closed and her fists clenched. Red-faced. Loud lungs. A fighter. They placed her on my chest, and for a moment everything fell silent, even the pain. Even him. I stared at her, stunned, as if I hadn't really believed she was real until she was finally here. Her warmth against me. Her heartbeat wild and new and separate from mine. The nurse smiled and whispered, "You did it." I nodded slowly. But I wasn't looking at the nurse. I was looking at her. My daughter. Not ours. His presence was background noise now. His awkward pacing, his fake tired smile, the way he kept glancing at me like he still had a role to play. I knew better. When the nurse returned with the paperwork, I reached for the pen. "Whenever you're ready," she said, handing me the birth certificate form. He took a step closer. "Let's talk about her name," he said softly. "I already did," I replied without looking up. He opened his mouth like he might protest, but then he saw the line I'd already filled in. First name Hope. Middle name Elise. Last name. My maiden name. His forehead creased. "You're not giving her my name?" I looked at him, calm.
No.
"You're serious?" I signed the line beneath mine. Then I reached the final field. Father's information. He stepped forward. "I'll fill that in." I covered the paper with my hand. "I'm not including a father." His voice rose just slightly. "You can't do that." I looked him in the eyes. "Watch me." The nurse stood frozen, unsure if she should step in. But I didn't need her. "I want this child raised without lies," I said, my voice level. "Without confusion. Without wondering why her father's name is on a piece of paper but not in her life." He took a breath like he might argue. But I didn't give him the chance. "You were with her the morning I gave birth," I continued. "You chose her. That choice comes with consequences." I handed the form to the nurse. She didn't ask any questions. He stood there, stunned, silent, as she walked away with the papers. And for the first time since the affair, I didn't feel afraid of him. I felt free. Not because I'd erased him, but because I had finally stopped writing him into a story he never deserved to be in. The mornings are different now. No heavy footsteps pacing the hallway. No cold silence during breakfast.
No pretending.
Just sunlight through the curtains. And her. She sleeps next to me in her bassinet, wrapped in a soft pink blanket my sister stitched by hand. Her chest rises and falls in rhythm, little sighs escaping her lips, fingers twitching as if she's still exploring whatever dreams babies have. Sometimes I just watch her. Not because I'm worried, but because I still can't believe she's real. The first few weeks were hard. Late nights. Feedings. Healing. Some moments I stood in the hallway holding her, swaying back and forth, whispering through clenched teeth, "It's okay. You're okay. We're okay." And we were. Even when I thought I might fall apart, she held me together. Every cry reminded me I was needed. Every breath reminded me I had chosen right. People ask about him sometimes. If he's involved. If he's seen her. I give the same answer every time.
No.
And then I smile. Not bitter. Not angry. Just sure. He sent flowers once. I didn't open the card. He mailed a gift. A tiny silver bracelet. I returned it. Because this story no longer belongs to him. It's just us now. Our home is small, but it's ours. There are baby bottles drying by the sink. a stack of half-read parenting books on the coffee table, and lullabies playing from my phone most nights. And laughter. Real laughter. I didn't know how much I missed the sound of joy until it came back through her. She coos when I talk to her, smiles when I sing, looks up at me like I'm her whole world. And she's not wrong. But what she doesn't know yet, what she'll learn in time, is that she saved mine. I carry her in one arm and everything I used to doubt in the other. Strength, worth, wholeness. And every night, before I put her to sleep, I whisper the same thing into her hair. You'll never have to earn love. Not with me. Not ever. Because she was the start of a different ending. One I gave myself.